these are lengthy stuff.
Yeah, you're looking for Hilchos Shabbos, Pegid Aleph, the long Perik Yud Aleph. Rambam says, now we're going to go through Malachas 29 to 36, I believe. HaSheikh Chayev, one who slaughters an animal, is Chayev for the Malacha of slaughtering. But Sheikh Bavad, not only if you shech, like with the bracha, like when a Sheikh shechs an animal, and the Kol Neitel Neshama, when anybody takes a life, any living creature, wild animal, a behemoth, domesticated animal, for a bird, a dog, or a fish, or sherrit, or a bug, or a creep-calling animal, a rodent. Whether you shechs the animal, whether you stab the animal. Actually, nechir is not just stabbing. Nechir is a very specific way of tearing the animal in half. It says in the over here. Okay, bein ba'akar, you beat the animal with a club, right? You club the animal. Chayiv for killing. Any killing of a life is chayiv. Those are all obvious. Now, hachaynik is a chayav shiyam. As a person who strangles an animal, suffocates until it dies. Harei hu telad sheichet. That's a tilde of sheichet. It's a little different because you're not slaughtering, drawing blood. You're suffocating, and that method of killing is a tilde rather than an av. Therefore, a person who takes a fish out of a bucket of water. Take a fish out of the ocean, that's a chiv of trapping. That's another story. Let's say there's no trapping. It's already in a small little fish bowl. Take it out of the fish bowl. One second. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying Ram takes the example of Yisrael. You leave it out of the fish bowl until the fish dies. That's chayiv for strangling because taking a fish. The fish was underwater. Gavaldik. Now you took him out of the water and the fish can breathe. No, for a fish that's strangling. Therefore, you're chayiv. It's not the shot that the fish has to die for you to be chayiv. You're chayiv even while the fish is still alive. But it gets to the point is even sheyavish by kasela. Once it gets dry between the gills or on the fins, it's not clear exactly. Kasela does not mean dry as a rock. Kasela means the space is the size of a sela coin, which is about 2 2/3 centimeter. Bein bisnapira between its fins. Chayiv for killing. At that point, the animal is not able to live, and therefore, when it gets that dry, it's considered, as for all halachic purposes, as good as dead. A person sticks his hand into the fetus of an animal, and he dislodges the fetus, meaning he dislocates the umbilical cord. Now the fetus can't live. Chayiv, then he's chayiv for killing the fetus, because in this regard, the fetus is considered an independent living thing, and killing it is the malach of shchita. Why the Ram says dafka behema l'chayr for a human would be the same thing? I'm not sure. Base, because the two over there they come to that meaning because it's considered murder, and therefore so Hilchos Shabbos is irrelevant. I'm not sure. All right, whatever. Good. Base. Sorry, 1 second. I have to re-record this halacha because last time I did not do it correctly, and I have to change the recording on Chabad already. So I made a point of making this mental note and I forgot. All right. Halacha base. Rishamim shein parnim v'ravim mizachan keva. Rishamim creeping crawling things, bugs that are reproduced by male and female relationship. Right. That's what usually most life on the planet is created from that fashion. Right. Alternatively, nahavin mina afer k'moya hapa erishin. It's not by virtue of reproduction. It's spontaneously generated from the dust, like fleas. According to the Rambam, according to the Gemara explains that fleas don't come from male-female parents. They are reproduced from they're generated spontaneously from the actual dust itself. So today's science obviously will agree with that, and then the Apostle describe and debate if that impacts halacha. Okay, good. So those scenarios, killing them is chayiv just like killing an animal. Now, in the case of the fleas that are reproduced spontaneously without male and female, why you chayiv based on the second half of the halacha? We'll answer in a second. Bugs, keep recalling things that are created from dung, minaperis, shevishu, from spoiled produce, spoiled fruits, okay, it's appendix like that. You're going to talam shal basar, worms of meat, talam shal worms and beans. Harid and pater, if a person kills them to pater, because they're not generated by parents, they are spontaneously generated from this garbage, and therefore it's not considered a living thing. Now, Mashenkin, in the first half of the halacha, the fleas that come from the dust spontaneously, according to the Rambam, even though they don't come from male and female parents, they themselves can reproduce. Or when male person kills them, it's chayiv. Mashenkin, in the second half of the halacha, talking about bugs that are spontaneously generated from the dung or from rotten fruit, they are not come from male and female, and they can't reproduce either. They only exist in the context of these types of rotten stuff. The fleas can come from parents, or the fleas themselves can come from the dust spontaneously, but then those fleas from dust can make generations of other fleas, and therefore it's not the same, therefore you're chayiv. Okay, that's halacha base.
That's pretty strange, by the way.
Yeah, fine. Halacha gimel. Kamafelas v'kelel b'Shabbos, a person who delouses the garment on Shabbos. Meil is a kingdom as zarkon. He rolls the fingers in his hands, and he can throw them. Like meil is this, doing this with your fingers. I'm not sure what the English verb for that is. Finger rolling, pill rolling, and he throws them away. last time I said Pshat that you're killing them, and the reason why you're killing them is because mutter, as Adam says in the second half of halacha, you're allowed to kill kinnim because kinnim are spontaneously generated. The truth is, now I like the way he says over here better. Unlike Tauger, he says no. Meilim v'zarkan is you roll them and you throw them away. You don't kill them, because you're not supposed to kill them, because the gezerah, if you're delousing your garment. Mapala kila means you're delousing. You're taking the garment and you're taking all the bugs out, the lice, the lice. But you might come across, while you're trying to do this, you might come across a flea. Fleas you said you're chayav for. So the chum were good, not to kill them, just to throw them away, in case you come across a flea, which you're not allowed to kill. Now, that's if you're doing it in a garment, so you might come across a flea. What about in your skin? People don't have fleas, hopefully. Lice people have, not fleas. Therefore, hamurta laharik is a kinnim v'shabbos, allowed to kill lice on Shabbos, not in the context of delousing a garment. In the context of Tammuz, it's on your body part, on your skin, on your head, then you're allowed to kill it. Because they're spontaneously generated from sweat. They don't come from male-female parents, and therefore they just like the bugs mentioned in the second half of Halacha Beis. It's only when you're taking them out of your beged, you might come across a different kind of bug that is a chiyuv to kill on Shabbos. The Chum said don't kill. Just take it and roll it so you weaken its koyach, can't call back. And it's like beating it up, and then you throw it away and that's it.
Hopefully it's not something hand to us.
By hand, you're saying.
Yeah. Valid.
Even in those days, they used to put naphtha.
Yeah, whatever. So that's different method.
But you're allowed to kill them wholesale. I mean,
no. 1 second. The Rambam says not to kill them. He says to throw them away because you might come to kill a flea, and a flea is chayav on Shabbat.
So that you're allowed to pick away.
Right. So,
but why are you allowed to kill kinnim?
Because they're spontaneously generated from the Pishim and Isaiah. They don't come from male female parents, and they can't produce their own offspring. Therefore, you kill them. Kinnim are mutter not to kill. But the Rabbanah, they're us to kill when you take them out of your beged, because you might come across a flea.
But on your body,
exactly. Okay, good. That's different than we said last time around. But I think it's a better shot. Halacha dal. So again, do you want to know about the pasuk they described today with scientific claim that we can't, those who think is spontaneous generation? Right. It's discussed. He brings over here different opinions, and there's a lot to talk about. And dal. Wild animals and creepy crawler bugs that will bite and certainly kill. Meaning. Bavadai can either mean that they'll for sure bite. I'm not sure, or maybe it means if they bite, they'll for sure kill. Fine, they'll sign. Okay, either way, good. That's for sure kill. It's a lethal bite. Yeah, cobras.
A hornet.
I don't know if hornets are lethal. They for sure sting. I'm not sure they're lethal, but okay. You're going to the Vush of Mitzrayim, the bugs, the flies of Mitzrayim, the cedar of Ninveh, the wasps of Ninveh, the Akav of Chadyav, the scorpions of Chadyav, the Nachash of Yisrael, the Israeli snakes. The Kelev, or Etusol snake, excuse me. The Kelev Shoyt the B'chomakim, a rabid dog in all places, parts of the world. When you see it on Shabbos, you may kill it because it's considered a Saras Nefash. It's just a half back that's near people. Saying other types of damaging or dangerous things like lions, yeah. If it's chasing, you can kill it. The Imhayu nation is sitting by itself and not bothering anybody, or very full fun. Certainly, if it runs away from you, also you may not kill it. The Madarsan if I guess a lion you can't really trample on. Let's say you're walking along with other types of dangerous like snakes or whatever. What's the famous centipede, the giant centipede that is lethal bite, I think. Yeah. Black widow spiders, things like that. So if you're walking on it and derech hagav you kill the mutter. Now, what does it mean mutter? We're saying if you trample on it already. So mutter means you can go do something. What pshat mutter? I did it already. So pashta pshat is mutter. There's no need to avoid. If you're walking, you don't have to try to avoid it. If you know there's black widow spiders on the sidewalk, don't try to be a chacham and avoid them. If ants, maybe you could say you should try to avoid because if you try, if possible. But this is no problem. Alternatively, the Rambam is saying is that you're allowed to kill the black widow spider in the kavana as long as you make it look like you're just doing it casually, whistling, right? Because then you that's a hecker that you're not supposed to go and do it if it's not dangerous. Okay.
Black widows are dangerous. Right?
I'm giving you the dogma of whatever bug it is. Okay. Okay. Also have to record here. 1 second.
How are you allowed to walk on Shabbos on earth?
Good to say that because it's not kavana. It's not ratio. You can talk about different ways of
okay.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Good.
The same thing as ants. How about ants on the street?
Right. So again, if you see a whole community of ants, lav daf supposed to walk on it. Right. But you can walk around. But it's a good question. A person who skins an animal, takes enough skin off the animal, enough to make an amulet, which could mean to write the whatever hocus pocus to write the amulet, whatever.
Live.
Huh?
Live animal.
No. A dead animal. Skinning an animal is one of the malachas of Alamas malachas. Yeah. So you skin. How much skin do you have to pull off to be over the issur, the malacha of skinning an animal? Enough leather that you can make an amulet, which either might mean the part you write, or more likely it means that the leather pouch that you make, you put the potion in or the mezuzah in, whatever it is. Similarly, another malacha is working leather. Again, the Mishkan they had leather covering, right? The tachash skins, the elim, the ram skins. Those are all part of the Mishkan. That's why this is Malach on Shabbos. So if you work the leather, and working the leather is a process, making the leather into it shouldn't just be animal hide, it should be actual either garment material or whatever material it is. So if you do that enough leather to make this amulet, again you chai for the malacha of ma'abed. Whether the person does the proper avodah of working the leather, or he simply salts it, which is salting it is either necessary for the process of working it, or some say salting it really just preserves it. You shouldn't get ruined until you have to come to get around to actually working it. That you are chayiv shamalicha min ibadhu, because this salting is part of the process of working the hide. There's no concept of working matera comes to food. Preserving food, salting food, treating food in a way that it should last longer, whatever it is, they salt food and all that. Matera, it's not a malacha. Now, could be a problem because you're preparing after Shabbos or because of other reasons. Now the next malacha, in Lamdas malachas, is mamachik. Not mamachik as in terms of writing and erasing, but mamachik, smoothing out the hide, which is the next thing you do after you skin the animal. Skin the animal, you work the hide, and you smooth it out, get all the hair off. So a person who smooths out the leather of the animal, the skin of the animal, takes off the hair, the animal skin. That's a hide. Kilas command to make enough leather to make an amulet. Chayiv is chayiv the malacha of mechikas ha'or. What does it mean to smooth it out? This is when he's taking off the hair or the wool from the hide. After it's dead, because if it's still alive, then the malacha is giza, shearing. That's something else. Here it's dead, so the malacha is smoothing. This way the surface is smooth. That is the malacha of machik. Moving on. Not moving on, continuing the topic. There's three types of parchment. Gvil, and then Gvil can be subdivided into klaf and chsustus. Person separates the klaf and the chsustus, even though the whole hide is no longer on the animal. Hadez a tuldus mafshit, that's a tulda of mafshit. Not the av, because it's no longer attached to the animal. Right. But it's close enough, you're separating the two layers of this thick skin from the thin skin. That is a tulda of mafarik, that is tulda of mafshit, of shata. It's chayv. Hadeiris ala erberagli she's kasha. A person who steps on the hide with his feet until it should become hard. Or he makes it soft with his hands. And he pulls it this way and that way. Mashvesh, he makes it smooth. Like is the process, the ways of those who make shoes. That's also part of the malacha of working leather, and a person is chayiv.
Not there.
This is the way people who make leather for shoes do it. I don't know. They're standing on. Yeah, sure, exactly. Look at halachas of sefer nezikah. You put the leather in the street. People should walk on it, right? There's a lot about yontif. If you shech and yontif, you're allowed to do that. Why? Because people in that collective will do that. They're not going to shech yontif. They're going to eat cereal. We don't want that. Okay, we'll learn about yontif. Okay, a person who takes feathers from the wings of a bird. He has like a large. He has the big feather, which is like basically the wing. And he takes the small little fluffy part off of the hard part of that goes to the animal's body, like the hard part of the bottom of the feather, the part you make into a quill. He's a tolda meichik, that's a tolda of smoothing, because you are smoothing out the stem of the feather, right, the center part, taking all the white powder, the fluffy stuff off of it. Right, the center of the feather has it's like a hard plastic straw. Yeah. Taking the soft part off, as a tolda of smoothing out the hide, because it's like a natural part of the animal. You're smoothing it out. A person who smooths out a bandage that has like some kind of ointment, any amount, or the smallest amount, there's no shear. Or shiver, or smoothed out wax, or zephes, or pitch, or these types of things which are mismarachin, which can be smoothed out. As yach becomes smooth, kapanim the surface, chayav mishamech is chayav for this moichik of smoothing out, not moichik as in erasing, again, smoothing out a surface. This is the issue with bar soap, this is the issue with deodorant stick on Shabbos, this is why some say not to use Vaseline and hand soap, stick hand soap. Yeah, this is all the whole issue over there. Exactly. A person, these people, they have these the hide. They stretch the hide. You see the hide by the sofa. Yeah, they have the hide stretched between on these like this like a torture rack. They stretch people. Right? And so and a person who while it's on there, he smooths it out while it's being stretched by these different pillars. With his hand, that motion of smoothing it out, because it's like it's creased, and you smooth it like that on Shabbos. That action is this malacha, is part of this malacha of smoothing out a hide. Halacha zayin. Now moving on to cutting. Next thing you do with the leather is you got to cut it down to size, right? That's the next malacha. A person who cuts from leather, enough leather to make an amulet, is chayiv for the malacha of cutting. But provided that the amount you cut was not random, it was a specific amount. I don't have to be to the millionth of an inch, not exactly the shears, but a specific measure of both height and width, apparently, length and width. he does it intentionally. That is the malacha of cutting. If he cuts it as a way of just trying to destroy it, right? He wants to put the hide in the garbage. Doesn't fit in the garbage can. He has to cut it into pieces, right? So he's doing it, but he doesn't care about the length. He wants random sized pieces. He's just doing it randomly. In other words, he's bored, right? People put the tablecloth because they're bored out of her brain, right? You start turning the tablecloth in one way. Or he's doing it as a joke. He's put and he's put them out to you. How can you make that a person who?
Why didn't you tie it in with animal, with an egg?
Because the Lama Test Malachas, that's the Seder. The Lama Test Malachas, they say these are all malachas follow the model of making leather from the animal, shechting the animal, skinning the animal, working the leather of the animal, cutting it down to pieces. Then we use that. Use the next thing is parchment. Actually, use that for. So it's funny. In the Mishkan, actually, the leather and the writing wasn't one process. The leather was used as covering for the Mishkan. The writing was on the beams. But in Lama Test Malachas, it's one Seder is if you're imagining a person who's going from taking a live deer to writing a Sefer Torah. That's the.
Now it's established the writing was because they marked the crushing.
The reason why writing is one of the Lamatis Malachas because it was in the Mishkan. Where in the Mishkan was it? When they marked the beams. Out of the base, yeah, they marked the. Yes, absolutely.
And one more thing, hamafshit means skinning.
Correct. Correct.
Learn Zion.
Yeah. I said, sorry. Now, before we learned about smoothing out the stem to take off the fluffy part of the feather. Here he's talking about a person who basically cuts the hard part of the feather. He's told us of cutting leather, and he's chayiv because he's cutting something to its specific any natural substance, any natural material, whether it's leather, wool, or a feather, as opposed to polyester or whatever, which is not real plastic, right? Okay, so you're cutting that to a specific amount. You want to make a quill from the feather. That is a tool of cutting, of chaytich, of mechatech, of cutting. Measured cutting. The shal is a person who smooths down the top of a cedar beam. It's also chayiv because he's cutting down the wood or the beam to a specific measure. Anytime that a person cuts a carpenter cuts a piece of wood, from wood, or he blacksmith, let's say for example, cuts metal of the metal. Cutting wood, cutting metal, any of these natural materials, you cut into a specific size, you break into a specific size. That is the malacha of cutting material. That's why tearing paper towels on Shabbos is also dry. Tearing a paper towel, right? It's perforated exact amount. If it's perforated. It's not the story. It's a person who takes a splinter of wood, in front of him, he puts it down to he smooths it down, or cuts it down. Lachtzich machina to use as a toothpick to pick out his teeth. Or the to open a door, meaning to use like a pick to pick a lock, or to put the toothpick in like a little hole and use it as a door opener. He's chayiv again because you're taking this piece of wood and you're making it down to a specific size, and that is the malacha of cutting. Halacha ches. Anything which is fit for an animal to eat, and certainly if it's fit for human consumption. Straw, basal, grass, lachem that is moist, hutzin, and date palm or palm fronds. You're allowed to cut them down on Shabbos to a specific amount. There's no concept keli out of food, and therefore, since the animal could eat it, so the food could eat it, a person could eat it, you're allowed to use it to cut it to a specific amount for whatever you want to do with it. You want to take a cinnamon stick and you want to crack it in half so you can smell. You're allowed to, even though it's hard and dry, because the fact you're cracking it in order to smell it, that's not called making a kli out of it, even though you may be doing it to an exact amount, to a specific amount you want to cut. If you're going to take the cinnamon stick and shave it down to use it as a toothpick, that's another story. But here you're just cracking it because you want to use it to smell, that's fine. A person is allowed to cut from this aromatic, the cinnamon, whatever it is, as much as he wants. Whether he is doing it with a what's b'sheach? It's gadol. It's cotton. Basically, whether he makes a large or small.
You take the bark off.
Yeah, sorry, thank you. When you b'sheach means thank you. B'sheach means that you strip the bark away. Thank you. So you're allowed to strip the bark away from it, whether it's a large or small stick. The fact is, you're not doing it for the size necessarily. At least not exactly. You're doing it for the purpose of smelling it. Yeah, halacha test.
What do I think always that Atzib some are focused on Shabbos?
Yeah. I have no idea because he's Favdallah. Anything with Favdallah, I don't know. No, if I can't give Kippur, we go around, we smell them, right? Make a bracha on them.
No, you didn't talk about. I put it outside to cut off a beach.
Yeah. Now moving on to writing. A person who writes on Shabbos 2 letters, he's chayiv. The next malacha after ksiva is mechika, erasing. Not mechika sa'ar, that's smoothing out leather. Mechika is in erasing writing. That is mater is chayiv. So a person writes letters is chayiv. Person who erases, if it's on the condition he wants, he's destroying something to something else. He's erasing writing for the purpose of writing in that place, rewriting or writing something else in that spot. Enough to write 2 letters, then he is chayiv.
You don't have to have kavanah for that.
Sure you do. If you're just doing it to be able to instruct it, then you're not chayiv. I'm erasing for a productive reason. I want to write in that location. Okay. Back then, especially, paper was expensive. I made a mistake. Like a guy writing a sefer Torah, he makes a mistake. He erases the word to write in that place. So it has to be enough to write 2 letters. Now you could ask, what do you mean? Any letter you erase, you could write 2 tiny letters in that place.
Right. No.
Good. So look, ask about the same ksav, the average size. And of course, you deal with that question. A person who erases 1 large letter, which is as big as 2, then he's potter because he did not erase, even though it's a shear of 2.
No, not race. He's right.
Oh, thank you. A person writes 1 large letter as big as 2 letters, then he's potter because it's only 1 letter. That's obvious. Here's the reverse. You erase the large letter, let's say the Ayin of Shema, but which is large, right? And it's enough to write 2 letters in its location. Chayiv and you chayiv because the space is enough for 2 letters. Because of he writes 1 letter, and that letter is the last letter in the book. Chayiv is chayiv. Because, why is he chayiv? According to the Rambam, it's his chayiv for ksiva, and it's dafka where he finishes one of the Sifrei Tanakh that makes it a whole sefer shalom, kosher sefer. Sometimes you're writing a biography and you write your last letter, you're writing the Rambam. So according to the Rambam, that's not the word. Other Rishonim say it's makal patish, which is the final finishing touch. According to the Rambam, that's not the word. According to the Rambam, it's chayiv because of ksiva.
Ksiva.
Yeah, that's what he says over here. And the word is ksiva, and that because that letter makes it into a kosher sefer. Again, but if you're writing the Rambam sefer Esmanim and you're just copying a copy of it, last letter you wrote on Shabbos, l'chayim not chayiv according to the Rambam. Okay. A person who writes, but he's being destructive. Now, I want to vandalize the shul. I start writing on the wall. So a masakaka, or excuse me, to destroy the people that he's writing on. So he's chayiv v'she'ein chiyuv al makam ksav, because the chiyuv is not for the fact that what you're writing, the location you're writing on. Now the wall is destroyed, or the leather I'm trying to ruin. You have a fancy leather, fancy cloth. I'm going to write the ABCs on it instead of your sefer Torah. So I ruined your cloth. But the chiv is not on the cloth is not on the chiv. The chiv is on the writing, and the writing is beseder. Now the fact that you're upset the cloth is ruined, the malach is not on the cloth. The subject is the writing. Therefore, it's not the location of the writing; it's the writing itself. The writing itself is very good. A, B, C, D, E, F, G. Fine. It's a waste of parchment, but the writing is writing. Therefore, you're chayiv. If it's not considered makalko, it's considered being productive. If you're chayiv. If you're erasing just to be destructive, you want to make the guy's tefillin impossible. You want to erase whatever it is. Then he's takapata. Some ink falls on a piece of parchment, on the book. He erases the ink blotch. Or wax falls on these wax ledgers, and he erases it so you should be able to write, properly indent the wax in that location. If that location is enough to write, or in this case, engrave in the wax, to erase it, and it's chayiv because again you didn't erase letters, but you erased something which in the place of letters. So therefore, it's considered mechika. So even though the thing you're writing is not the subject of the malacha, Reuven comes along and he makes an ink blotch. He's not chayiv for writing on Shabbos. Shimon erases the ink blotch to write in that location. He is chayiv for erasing because it's still considered erasing in this regard. It's, okay, interesting.
Yes.
When we get that, it has to be 2 aces. What was the malacha?
There's I forgot the makar. That's the din. That's yeah. The Gemara talks. I forgot exactly what. A person writes 1 letter 2 times, but that is a word, a subject. Going is different. So here, rar, teis, gag, which means roof, right? Da, tas, like taste, like taste koicha, right? Even though he's chayiv because even though it's the same letter twice, it's just 2 letters, and what he's doing is meaningful. He is chayiv. Bruce writes 2 letters in every script, every language: English, Hebrew, ksav ashuris, ksav, whatever it is, big ksav ivri, hieroglyphics. Even maybe we'll see
Chinese.
Yeah,
Why not?
So Chinese is the language is its own together. It's not letters. It's a whole different chachma. It's symbols. Oh. It's excellent. You know what? Okay, 1 second.
Russian
so,
also, right?
No, Russian is regular letters. Oh, so 1 second. We'll get to a second. Wait a second. Yeah. So even to simanim, that's considered Also you chayiv. Now, so simanis I always thought was, let's say if you write, it's a numbers or exclamation mark and question mark, it has a meaningful thing. Hieroglyphics, but now it's an example. Chinese, yeah, Chinese is also considered letters. It's the siman has a meaningful. It's not just a random modern art blotch. There's a meaningful interpretation to the Chinese symbol. Therefore, it's considered a letter. Therefore, two symbols is taka chiyav. Yeah. Actually, that's a good example. I never thought about that. Yeah. Yud Aleph. Yeah.
Arabic is also.
Arabic, I think, is more regular language.
Yeah.
I don't think Chinese you can't like read it phonetically. Like English, if you could like read it but not know what you're saying because you can or Hebrew, but you can read Hebrew not know what you're saying because you know how to read the and letters and what they sound.
And Chinese, huh?
I don't think so. I think you have to know what the words. There's an Indian behind the symbols. It's not just like a each symbol has like a certain pronunciation. It's not pshat. I don't think so. Okay, I'm not an expert in Chinese. Yeah, a person, right? We have already, let's say, a written word, and you add one letter. Or now, the truth we said before about finishing a book, but over here we're talking about didn't finish the book.
Wow.
He did not finish the book. He just added a letter. Or there's already writing, and you write it over, you trace it over, and it's the exact same quality, just to make it. It's a slightly faded, and you mechadish like a sefer does the sefer Torah to make it a little bit better. Or a star is starting to fade, you write it over, but it's not like it's erased. It's still there. You're just making it more renewed. Now, you want to write a ches. Instead, you wrote two zayins because let's say it's kavashurish. You forgot to write the roof of the ches that connects the two zayins makes to a ches. You didn't do that part. You just made two zayins. The similar for all letters. So
These are all okay.
1 second, we'll see. You write one letter on the ground, one letter on the ground, one letter on the beam, meaning on top, so they're not near each other. They're not associated with each other. You can't read them together. Because you wrote two different letters on two different pages in notebooks, so you can never make them to be together because there's different pages in the book. Or you could say it's two different. Let's say it's two different tablets, but each letter is in the center. So you can't, even if you put the tablets next to each other, they're a foot apart because the middle of each one is the middle of the center of the page. So there's no way to make them be associated. Right? So potter is potter. All these scenarios because it's not considered in that table. Let's finish halacha. If you wrote them in two different walls at the corner where the walls meet, so essentially they can be read together. They're two different walls, but they're mamish next to each other. Or two different pages of the notebook. They can be associated, meaning they're two different pages, but the spiral connects them, marshal, and they're written right next to each other like this in the center of the book, and therefore they can be read together. Or you could say shot two different pages, totally different pages, but one you wrote over here on this one on that one, and you put it together, you can read it together. Akapanim chayiv, because here the two letters can be associated. If that's your kavanim, you wrote the two different letters, even though they weren't at the time together, they can be easily put together without any major change. And therefore you chayiv, even though right now the two papers are still different tables. There's a difference. The fact is it's easy to connect, and therefore it's considered malach of writing. Yeah, sorry, what?
The two letters we said in some instances can be considered writing because it composes a word.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. There's grammarians that hold. Rashi uses them all the time. That where
the sherish of two letters.
All Hebrew words boil down to two letters.
So the word is okay. The
So
word
any
is if
situation-
you write two random letters that have no meaning, Rashi v'chayiv. Like Aleph Zayin or Zayin Tes. I don't know if you chayiv if it doesn't actually mean anything. ZQ. I'm not sure. So the word
In
is
English, it could not be a
but
problem.
the same letters in a row. If it's a meaningful word, you are chayiv. Okay, you base.
Rashi gives a much
Look, a person takes gvil.
Shame v'shimen.
Okay, no, 1 second. We'll get to that in a second. Look, I believe we'll get to that in a second. Yeah. Actually, no, sorry, we're not going to get to that, but the first talk about that. Okay, look, gvil, a person who takes what is that? Look, gvil, a person takes gvil, which is the leather that you pull off an animal, things like any surface like that. You write one letter on it in this country. You go to another country, another district, another city, and you write another. You may have tchum, let's say, yeah. You might write the other letter in the second country, in different parchment. Because when you bring them close, neg and zay they can be read together or associated. There's nothing major has to be changed to bring them close. So the Ram is saying the same thing he said in the previous halacha, but here the chiddush is even when that happens in you're in two different cities,
Right.
not just two different papers. Yud Gimel.
As long as it's the same Shabbos.
Yeah, a person writes one letter. We said you have to write two letters. Even though that one letter can be understood to be the entire content, one full word, so it's a full inyan. Shleima, partly spot. Kids, for example, mem, he writes a mem, and everyone knows it means meisim. It's not like zero when the Yavonim or whatever it was. They couldn't declare mitzvahs. They would write these letters as hints. Everyone knew mem meant meisim, kuf meant carbon. So then, nevertheless, you're potter because it's not a word; it's just a letter. He writes, let's say, mem for 40. Shrei who can be shekasav abayim, writing mem is like he writes 40. I raise a potter because again, it's not two letters. A person who corrects one letter, but thereby makes it the two. You deliberately remove the roof of the ches because you want to make two zions. I didn't write anything. I took ink off the paper. Nevertheless, because the result of what you mice is creation of two letters. The same applies in all situations. The person who writes with his left hand, which is considered unusual, or the back of his hand, meaning he writes unusual. And he brings over even tzedek that mamish has to be like your hand, like mamish backwards. Like sounds like holding the pen awkward like this is not good enough. If the mamish hold it fakert. Right, we hold it with his foot, with his mouth, or with his elbow joint. There's a part these are considered a shinoi. Either a left-handed person, we write with his right hand, which he which is everyone's left-handed unusual hand to use. Because it's a shinoi. Because this is the whole concept in all the lamatas halachos. We borrow from over here, because this is the most common way of doing halach in an unusual fashion. Because of this, left hand, person writes with his left hand, he's chayiv because it's not unusual. A person who uses both hands equally in the pasuk say even not mamish equally, but each hand you can write decently. Because of he writes with either hand, so it's not either hand is not a shinoi. Therefore, he's chayiv with the other hand. Caught in a child, who's holding a quill, a pen. The adult's holding the child's hand. The case writing that way. Chayiv is chayiv. I'm not sure why the chayr is a shinoi, but I guess not so unusual. Whatever. The adult holding a pen, and the child holds his hand because of his writing. Potter is potter. Obviously, the kid's potter. Even the adult is potter because he's not considered writing. The child moving his hand. Tesva. I have to hold on this one. Why it's not considered a shinoi. Like it's said before. It has to be a mud in the thing. Your hand is mamish backwards, like this. Yeah. Then you putter. Holding the kid's hand is not it's unusual. Right. But it's not like it's not hepech normal. It's just not exactly normal. Right? There's not normal and there's crazy. Right. It has to be crazy. It has to be abnormal. Okay. Weiter. Halacha tesvav. And the writing has to be done if it's a lasting writing. Does it last forever? But for that whole day. People say that a pencil doesn't really last. It's not true. A pencil, it lasts at least for that day. It's considered a permanent ksav. You're going to ink, shchar, black ink, sikra, red marking, red ink, kumas, kankante, different types of colors and different types of writings, different types of ink, pen. And the surface also has to be where it will last. You're going to like leather, cloth, and parchment, veneer, paper, ve'etz, and wood, if it's on something which the marking won't last, you're going to mashkin, you write with liquid. But liquid that's not going to make a marking, not like red pomegranate juice, like with milk or with lemon juice, doesn't really last. Right? So payers and different fruit juices, you write with ink, but write with ink on some kind of red leaf that's moist, that's not going to last. I'll call any surface won't last because the surface's nature is not to retain the ink. Then he's potter. Dry erase board l'chayra. Right? It's not meant to last. Actually, that will last if you don't erase it. Okay.
How about the pencil?
I don't know. She'eni chayiv. He's not chayiv at yichdev davar oimed. Unless you write something which is going to last, al davar oimed on a lasting surface. Lasting ink on lasting surface. The person who erases not chayiv. It has to be erased from on lasting surface. If you erase on a surface, it's not going to last. Also, so the guy who wrote is not chayiv. The guy who erases is not chayiv. Same reason. 10 design. 1 second. We have to finish. A person who writes on his own flesh, he's chayiv. Now, the page you are the flesh is skin, and you in flesh is considered a normal surface. Despite the fact that everyone knows that the warmth and moisture of the flesh will cause the ink to fade. This is like when you wrote, someone else came along and erased it. Essentially, human skin is a surface you can write on. The fact that normally a person sweats and has heat that causes it to be erased doesn't make the surface not writable surface. It just means circumstantially it won't last. A person who indents in his scratches into his flesh writing potter, because that's considered a shinah. But if he puts ink like a tattoo, he's chayiv. A person who tears into leather or into paper, he tears out like a stencil of letters. Chayiv b'shum kaisu is chayiv for writing. A person who makes like a iron like a needle the image of writing on a leather, he's patur because that's not the normal way of writing. You have sikra which is red marking, and you retrace it over, but this time you use black ink. So chayiv shtaim, you chayiv for two malachas. Achav v'shem kaised, you chayiv for writing because the black ink is considered superior, and therefore it's not something like tracing the exact same twice. If it's black on black, you're not chayiv, we said before, remember? Here you're chayiv, because the achas, mishum meichik, because you're erasing. Because erasing the red as you trace it over, it's considered meichik, amanas lichtay. Oh, if it's ink on ink or red on red, or if it's red on black, which is inferior, then your patik is not considered proper writing. Halach Zayin. Reishim, to let this show you the question, this is fascinating. Reishim, making markings is a tool of writing. It's not an av of writing, it's a tool of writing. Kids, for example, Reishim, Risham, and serious person makes images and pictures, like a picture of a flower, with blue ink or shashar, different types of colors, as the artists do. Can write. Now, the chaya has to be in a space big enough to write two letters. But making a picture with this permanent marking is considered the tulda, not the av, but the tulda of ksiva.
It's communicating a message, just like the
A flower is a message? Good. So what if I make modern art, some blotch, everyone says it's a psychological, a Rorschach thing, right? I don't know. It has to be like an image of, you can look and see what it is. It's a flower, it's a house, it's something. Yeah. All right, again, I'm not sure exactly, but he doesn't explain it very much. Again, if you erase the picture to put in its place another picture or writing, and that's a tool of erasing, and you chayiv. The next level of halacha is sirtut. You make ruled lines like you do, like Sefer does, to write straight lines. So if he does enough to write two letters on that line or under that line, to do under, right? Tachas is chayiv for the halacha of sirtut. Now, tutus of sirtut. Carpenters, they put some red marking on a beam. They should know exactly where to cut it, the exact marking. Because you're making an exact marking. People who cut stones, quarry, what do they call it, quarriers? That they do this, they make markings on the stones, they know exactly where to cut the stone. Stone masons, thank you, a mason, yeah, the shav at the exact marking. With coloring, or he does it down with a slight indentation or a scratch, his chayav is all chayav for the tulda of sirtut.